It is a great honor to welcome an Ohio native originally and first time to Studio C and celebrating a brand new record called High Tides that just came out here for 2019, just like a week and a half ago. Please welcome Ms. Constance Hauman. And Constance is from Toledo and kind of grew up in the Ann Arbor area and is now making a little bit of a genre stepping change into, indie pop and chamber pop music. But she is quite accomplished in the classical music world and as a soprano singer. So welcome, Constance, and just maybe tell us just a little bit about this brand new record before we do the first song.
Well, my new record is called High Tides, and it's my second album. It's sort of an extension, or it is an extension of the first one, which I titled Falling Into Now, because my life went through a huge change and upheaval, and I'd been singing opera for almost 30 years and singing other people's music and traveling all over the world, and had a lot of upheaval in my personal life, and I had to just start over. And I started a record label called Isotopia Records with my first record, Falling Into Now. And then during the course of that record came out in 2015, I started a indie funk rock band called Miss Velvet and the Blue Wolf for a singer who had worked with me for many years, and I built a band around her and went to United Sound in Detroit, which was the home of George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, and recorded our record there with hopes that George would hear it and maybe we'd go on tour with him. So not only did he hear it, the record came out in October. It was the second release on Isotopia Records. And he heard it, and we were invited to open for him at B.B. King's in New York. And then that turned into this entire year we've been on tour with him. And in 2019, I'm very excited because in addition to High Tides, my personal solo album, is the second Miss Velvet and the Blue Wolf album, and George will be on 2 of our tracks. And his granddaughters also have a debut EP on my label, and I have several other artists. So 2019 is a really huge year from something that seemed impossible in 2011, when my life fell apart and I didn't know what I was going to do, that if anyone had told me that I'd be sitting here with all of you, I would never have believed it. But here I am, and it's very exciting and moving to have all this be happening and being able to share it and come back to my roots, because I was actually born in Ann Arbor and then grew up in Toledo, went to school in Chicago, Northwestern, and then moved to New York, and then started my opera career. And this is an amazing place to come back to start over.
Yeah,
in a way,
how about that?
And to celebrate.
Yeah. Well, and congrats on all of this exciting stuff happening in the new High Tides record, which we'll hear the live performance from today. And I kind of want to make special note of the baby grand piano in Studio C. This has never happened before. We actually had a rental come in to bring in the baby grand, and maybe just first off, test this thing out. Kick the tires a little bit. Does this piano sound pretty good in here?
Pianos. I love them.
Oh, so great.
I started piano when I was 6, and I had a wonderful, wonderful piano teacher who was a composer, and her daughter was married to the pianist Andre Watts, and so I was spoiled rotten getting to hear his concerts a lot and listen to his recording with Leonard Bernstein of the Brahms over and over again, and he, of course, watched over and over again young people's concerts, and he got his big break because Lenny put him on for Glenn Gould. And then I got my big break with Leonard Bernstein because he put me on for June Anderson and Candide. And I was able to move to New York because Andre had an apartment there. And after I was an apprentice with the Santa Fe Opera, I really wanted to move to New York. And my parents, of course, were afraid. And so Andre said I could stay, take care of his apartment. And my dad basically gave me a year to prove I could do it. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to make this happen. So I hit the pavement and got my first job with Texas Opera Theater, which was the extension of Houston Grand Opera. And then Andre's lease was up, and I kept the apartment.
Wow.
And then his personal life went through upheaval, and he already had 2 pianos, so I got to keep his piano. And so when my life fell apart, I started writing on his piano. So and I have a very unusual New Yorker story because I've lived in the same place for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's at 66th Street across from Lincoln Center, across from Avery Fisher, where he played with Bernstein. And then on 65th Street is now Leonard Bernstein Way. So,
wow. Oh, man.
I'm going to end my set with a song from my first album called Angels, because I think they're around. But I'm going to start with the title song from this album, High Tides.
Yeah, this is Constance Hauman, our guest here in Studio C and on the Baby Grand in Studio C for the first time ever. And let's do that first song. Take it away.
apologies, my humblest, my
be content just to find peace on the ocean's
Oh, very nice, very nice. Another Wayside Furniture Studio C performance, powered by Consumers National Bank and Summit members. And I'm Brad Savage, very honored to have our friend Constance Hauman here, simultaneously a Ohioan and a Buckeyes fan, but also from the Detroit Ann Arbor area. So you kind of stay out of that whole
don't ask me about football.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm a Wolverine and I'm a Buckeye.
See,
so
just like me, I'm neutral too.
I'm Switzerland.
Perfect.
I
But,
stay out of it.
And I kind of love the Midwest upbringing, the hometown story, and the New York success story, especially as a soprano and, moving to New York and everything. How do you think that, what are you seeing as differences with your new work and your more pop-oriented work as opposed to, being in New York and being more in the classical world?
It's really all the same, because I got to refer to Leonard Bernstein again. I mean, it's music is music, and my background being lucky enough to be of the age that I could, through my younger years and preteen years, be able to watch the young people's concerts.
Yep.
So, and he was the greatest music educator, because everyone could tune in, and he was able to show that there shouldn't be any genre prejudice. Mm-hmm. Great music is great music. I sort of fell into the classical thing, just started. As I said, started on piano and was in choirs, and was very fortunate to go to a school with a wonderful music teacher. My mother was a singer, so that was an advantage, as she exposed me to wonderful music. My father loved soul and R&B and Earth, Wind and Fire, so I had that. And then I went to Interlochen Music Camp and ran away the night before because I didn't want to go. And when I got there, I was like, what was I thinking? I love this. And I turned into, wanting to go every summer, and was exposed to Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, and so did a lot of that in my teenage years. And then I won competitions, and then both my parents encouraged me to go to a university where I could also be well-rounded and not just go to Juilliard, and I think they were still really afraid of New York, that to just go and study music. So that's why I ended up in Chicago. And that was great, because I love all kinds of music, and so I could go into the city and hear jazz and hear, Sun Ra, who I was crazy about.
Oh, cool. Yep.
And I was exposed to also George Solti. So it was just an amazing time to be in Chicago. Yeah. And actually at Northwestern, I had done all this performing in high school, and suddenly at Northwestern, I wasn't really doing that much performing. So I would go into, because the undergrads, everything was deferred to graduate students. So I would go into Chicago and just start auditioning for things so that I could go somewhere else. And that's how I ended up as an apprentice with the Santa Fe Opera. And then that's how it opened up the doors to that I could, hey, Mom, Dad, I can go to New York. I know some people.
Yeah, right.
And
wow.
That's how that started. And then in New York, one of my first auditions was for a company, a very avant-garde company, because in the 80s, New York was really, really exciting. And everyone was there. RuPaul, Madonna had just arrived. I mean, it was very exciting, also in classical music. And there was a new avant-garde company that was started by the theater director, Joseph Papp, and a wonderful opera director named Eric Fraud. And it was called Opera at the Academy. And I auditioned for that, and we did crazy events at clubs like Studio 54, the Limelight, singing the Rigoletto Quartet, actually chained to Dobermans. Like rocked out. It was the beginning of a new way of looking at opera.
Yeah.
So that actually introduced me to all kinds of new theater directors who were going into opera. And that's really what boosted my career. And I was in the New York Times as, someone to watch, that type of thing.
Oh, wow.
But so really my opera beginning was very rock starry, in a cliche way. And that was the beginning of MTV.
Right. Yep.
And when I got my big break with Bernstein and he put me on, it was quite a story that's too long to tell, but it wasn't. If there had been social media, it might not have happened, because there were a lot of people who didn't think I could do it because I was unknown, and I had never sung the role, and Lenny put total trust in me because he was great at just giving people chances and seeing what happens. And I had to basically audition in front of the television cameras, and I thought, okay, I'm never going to get this, but if I were Prince or Madonna, how would they do this? And and I stormed out and thought, they're never going to. And then they came running after me and said, okay, June Anderson isn't going to cancel, but if she does, you're going to go on. And then I had to say, well, I don't have anything to wear, because I was called literally out of the blue on 24 hours notice. And I had to rent what I wore. And actually a psychic predicted that I was going to have a moment of destiny with a conductor like Bernstein in a city like London, but I was wearing a blue dress. And I said, I don't wear blue. So when they called me and said, you're going to be the understudy, I said, I don't have anything to wear. They were like, oh my God. So they drove me to a dress hire shop, and in the window was a blue dress with a big slit up the front that was like very 80s actually in style, and something Madonna would have worn. I went, oh my God, that's my dress. And it was my dress. It fit, and you can see it on YouTube. That's my dress. And
my gosh.
It was really crazy.
I love this.
It's very related.
Yeah, this is really neat. And I kind of like that special intersection that you're describing, between the pop world and new wave and all of that, and, and being in classical and opera singing. It's pretty cool. And, and then you merge those universes very well on the two new records as well.
Well, when I was growing up, of course, when I was a teenager, and part of the reason I ran away before going to Interlochen was because I was listening to Parliament Funkadelic, and I was listening to Led Zeppelin, and I was listening to Aerosmith and to Joni Mitchell and Carole King and Laura Nyro, and I was like, I don't want to sing classical music. I want to do this.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful for my entire career, because the composers that I've been able to emerge myself in have given me a language I didn't know I had. Mm-hmm. And it's just very moving to see, Lenny was right. It's all connected. And so then, to make it even crazier, now George Clinton, he's also at that same understanding and always has been. And obviously why I was so drawn to him, because I was like, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this. And it's really amazing to be with him. We've been with him for a whole year. We've done 70 shows, and
amazing.
He's getting the Lifetime Achievement Award this weekend.
Well, and I want to talk about that in our next segment too, which is pretty neat. If you're just joining us, Constance Hauman is our guest. Another Studio C session here on the Summit. For our Summit members, we've got a whole room full of Summit members here. That's one of the perks of being a member of this local public radio station, getting invited to the Studio C performances and seeing the beautiful baby grand piano for the first time in Studio C. Let's do another live song.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
which one now? Another one off of High Tides?
Yes, I'll do. It's called Love Burns. I have a lot of experience with love. It's all kind of ended badly, but it gives you a lot to write about. a liar when I smell one. Don't flatter me. I always know when you want something. I've been around the block more than you. You're not fooling me with all you don't do. I just decide to pay it no mind, 'cause I love the love burn inside. Don't walk on me. My back is stronger than your step. Don't promise me I'm good at breaking all the ones that I kept. I've played this game longer than you. You're not fooling me with all you don't do. I just decide to pay it no mind, 'cause I love the love burn inside. Burn me because I don't get hurt. I've already been down there rolling in the dirt. Bleed me 'cause my blood gets transfused. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 'Cause we're both, we are getting used. Don't pressure me. I can take it well over high. Don't say you love me. My feelings for you I'll always deny. I can love more freely than you. You're not fooling me with all of your rules. I just decide to pay it no mind, 'cause I love the love burn inside. Burn me because I don't get hurt. I've already been down there rolling in the dirt. Bleed me 'cause my blood gets transfused. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 'Cause we're both, we're getting used. Burn me, oh, burn me.
Celebrating the new record, High Tides. Constance Hauman is our guest for a live Studio C performance here on the Summit. Isotopia Records is the label that Constance founded a couple of years ago. And talk a little bit about that experience leading up to where you're headed this weekend.
Well, what's kind of crazy to go back to that opera at the Academy. That guy I auditioned for, Eric Fraud, he became my boyfriend, and then we broke up. And yeah, well, I broke up a lot. Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, careers are hard. They're really hard. There's always a trade-off, and yeah. So, but anyway, we remained friends, and he moved to Ireland and got married and has children and started a record label called Heresy Records. And I wanted to start a label, and so I called him and said, I need you to, how did you do this, and consult me. So basically what happened was then we merged and we're partner labels. So it's very cool because Heresy Records does Baroque and world music and classical, and then my side does electronic, pop, jazz, funk. You know, we share. ideas. And basically, it's interesting too because we really believe passionately in packaging, and him being a director and me, I've been, my career, we're both very theatrical. And so it's a way to create packaging for that keeps that theatricality going and also can keep hopefully inspiring people to buy the physical product and continue the tactile experience of listening to music. And so Heresy Records and Isotopia Records are a team. And I came up with the name Isotopia basically working on Falling Into Now with my drummer, and we recorded the whole thing in my apartment, and then he would record his drums in his apartment, and then we merged it together on the tracks. And I thought, okay, it's two charged particles creating a utopia. So that's how I came up with
Isotopia,
the name.
Perfect.
And heresy speaks for itself.
Right.
So you can be a heretic or an isotopian.
Yeah. Well, and now this this new adventure is going to take you to the Grammy Awards this weekend.
Yes, because George Clinton is getting the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yep.
And got to be there.
Wow.
Because I knew it. I predicted. I kept telling him, you're going to get it this year. And he's like, they're going to give it to me. They're going to give it to dead people. And which is my favorite thing he said. And he's getting it. But the real big ceremony is May 11th.
Okay.
Because that's when they will actually perform with Black Sabbath and everyone else, all the Lifetime Achievement winners.
Oh, wow.
But this weekend, obviously, he'll be there. And a lot of the P-Funk members will be there.
Yep. They played here in Akron 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
It was there were like 14 people in the band on stage.
And there's 22, I'm pretty sure, all of them when they're traveling. And then our band, Miss Velvet and the Blue Wolf, is 8. So we're an army when we show up somewhere.
Do you take over a hotel then, like each city?
It's pretty ridiculous.
Oh, man.
But we may be playing around here again because the One Nation Under the Groove tour was just announced in Rolling Stone 2 days ago. And we're in the lineup with Dumpsta Funk and Galactic and George.
Yep.
And there'll be surprise guests in different cities.
Yep.
We're playing Central Park. We're playing the Greek Theater in LA, and I know we're playing in Cincinnati at the Riverfront, but there'll be other dates. It's just
fantastic! Yeah. So give us some insight into George Dr. Funkenstein Clinton. Like, what's he like on a average Tuesday afternoon?
I don't think I've ever seen him in the afternoon. He's like Santa Claus. I mean, we all just see, and everyone in the band, we've all been, P-Funk freaks and fans. So, we still just grab each other and go, oh my God, do you believe it? I mean, because it's just unbelievable. And there's a lot of varied ages in the band, but all of them, our bass player, guitar player, the drummer, the singer, it's like we are just completely in awe of them. Yeah. And Red Hot Chili Peppers, of course, was started by George. And I took the band to United Sound in Detroit because I knew it existed. And I wanted to get everyone out of New York to push us to another level. Yep. And United Sound had pretty much been closed. It was a museum in a way, a museum, but not a lot was going on. And the legendary Studio A was closed. Yep. Basically, there wasn't even a console in there. But from recording my album at home, and then all the the kids in the band who do production as well, I thought, okay, let's just try to rebuild the studio using interfaces and software that imitates preamps, because they had a few preamps. I mean, I won't get into the whole audio geek part of it. But
it's fun, though.
But I knew the room, Studio A, was built by Jimmy Vitti, who I actually came across. I knew his name from the back of all the recordings because he recorded all of George's live records. He was a sound engineer in LA and for MGM and built a lot of sound studios there. And I have a one-woman show called Exiles in Paradise, which is about the composers that fled Europe and opera and operetta composers that ended up in LA writing for the movie studios. So even though he wasn't of that era, that's how I realized, oh, it's the same Jimmy Vitti. And he built Studio A in a classical way. You know, it's a sort of like the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, which I had sung in many times, or Carnegie Hall, with just the right baffling, the right wood to get the natural resonance of the room. And that's why it was used for all of Marvin Gaye's, the strings and the horns. And then Berry Gordy, gotta say it, he kind of stole the idea of United Sound and created Motown. But George stayed at United Sound because he was literally inventing funk he loved Led Zeppelin and was like, geez, we just need amps to, he never, wasn't in the gospel R&B thing. Yeah. So United Sound became the home really for funk. And then, of course, Earth, Wind and Fire recorded there in Fifth Dimension because of the natural room sound you could get for the horns and the strings. So Miss Velvet, the singer, who has worked with me for many years and has a tremendous female rock voice, it was like she needed a room, like the way I recorded opera.
Sure.
And, you see pictures of Aretha with the mic like that up to her mouth, but when you really saw the archival of this from the studio, she sang back where you have all the mics, so her real voice could be caught in the room, and Anita Baker and other great singers. So that's also why Red Hot Chili Peppers went there. Yeah. And their record that changed their career that George produced, it was very exciting. We were freaking out because it's like, oh my God, you're standing right where Anthony Kiedis stood. So, and there was still a Hammond organ from Parliament was still there, and a big screen of George with his dreads. But the most exciting thing was the kitchen upstairs where all the Parliament Gold and Platinum records are just there over the dining room table. A kitchen table, not even a dining room, kitchen table next to the refrigerator. So we were infused with the juju in that place.
Oh, very cool.
And I thought, well, maybe he'll listen to it. I don't know, but maybe. And the record came out, like I said, it was the second release on Isotopia, and it came out on October 27th. And when we finished recording in October of 2016, I took the band to B.B. King's to hear George live. And I was able to get to him on the elevator with a picture of us sitting under all his records.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're from United Sound." I said, I just recorded it. He goes, "Let me know when it comes out." And that was it. Yeah. And a year later, it was October 27th, the record came out. He was playing at B.B. King's again. And I was like, we have to get on the show. We just have to. And another long story, which I'll spare you, but I got the record in a lot of people's hands and got it into someone at B.B. King's. I went out to everyone I could find to get it to him.
Yeah.
And Halloween was on a Tuesday, and on Monday they called me and said, "Okay, you guys can do 20 minutes." And I was like, oh my God. Because I knew it would happen. And this goes back to Lenny giving me my chance. I had many things happen like that during my career that you can't explain. That's just like, wow. But you have to be ready. You have to be prepared because you can jump in at the last minute. Yep. And we were ready as a band. And so we get there and we're completely freaking out. And we, of course, don't have a good spot. It's like the doors are opening and it wouldn't be full and everything else. But at our sound check, one of the P-Funk guys started to walk out and he heard us and he turned around and he started filming us. And I went, he's going to go out to the bus. Like he knows we're good. We're not going to embarrass them. So sure enough, the manager of B.B. King's comes back later and says, "You guys are out. George is going to let you go on later at 7:30 and you get 40 minutes. And we're like, oh my God. And then, he gave us another test, the Howard Theater, a week later, and then the rest is history. We've done 70 shows with him.
70?
Yeah. We went to Europe with him, and I produced a live recording of them, and the greatest moment was when I heard George told his daughter that it sounded like Jimmy Vitti recorded it. So that was a huge thing.
Yep.
Because I don't even think he knew that I know, so, who he is.
So much. Yeah. Wow.
So anyway.
Such great stories. This is fascinating stuff. Our guest in Studio C, Constance Hauman. The new record just came out called High Tides, her record. And let's hear it. Let's hear another song from that.
I'm going to do Waiting for You.
All right. Live in studio on a baby grand piano. First time ever in Studio C. And this is Constance Hauman. Take it away.
When there's restlessness inside, we're all meant to be dreamers. That's why the stars don't lie. Now they say there's a super planet that the eye will never see, but I've heard the harmonies that connect the trees. That's why I know I was waiting for you. Time is an illusion. A scientist once said, home is where the heart is. That's never left my head. And there were times I couldn't see the forest through the trees, and the pain and the beauty of life brought me to my knees. That's why I know I was waiting for you, waiting for you. All the world's a stage. A playwright once said, we're actors on his stage. That's why you can change life every day. And there were times I listened to negativity, but now all I believe in is electricity. That's why I know I was waiting for you, waiting for you, waiting for you, waiting for
Our guest here in Studio C, Constance Hauman. We've played a few songs live off of High Tides, the new release. And great to have you back in the old heartland here,
Yes.
back in Ohio. Do you get back to Ohio, Michigan area? Still have family in the area here? Or back in
Yes,
Toledo?
Yes, my father lives in Temperance and my mother lives in Toledo.
Nice.
So,
Yep.
again,
Yeah.
Michigan, Ohio.
Michigan, Ohio. There you go. And remind us too. You were telling me before the show of a great award from Ohio that you received a few years ago.
Yeah. I got the Ohio Citizens Award for my one-woman show, Exiles in Paradise, which is about the opera and operetta composers that fled the Holocaust in Europe for Hollywood and reinvented our popular music
Yep.
by making the movie music better.
Right. How about that?
Because they were more, they were classical composers and they had to leave, and many of them felt like, composing for the movies was beneath them.
Right.
But from that was born great songs for Judy Garland and Deanna Durbin and the beginning of pop songs and the beginning of, they were the composers that added jazz into the movies, because when they fled Berlin and Vienna and Munich and everywhere, they ended up in Paris. And that's where so many of the great black musicians had to flee our country. And they all merged and came to LA with an amazing palette of musical language, and now excited with jazz, and they brought that into the movies and really created our classical music, created the pop, our popular culture.
Yeah.
So it's all tied together.
It's all tied together, like we've been saying.
It's just music.
Yeah. Well, and we've played here, I'd say the song of yours that we've played most on the station is Angels. So I'm hoping you might be able to close out with that one and just give us a little perspective on Angels.
Angels, I wrote a lot of these songs in both albums in Paris, where I lived a long time too. And Angels, I actually wrote the lyrics on a vomit bag of the airplane. Because it just came to me. I'd come up with a chord progression. I had come up with this riff, and I was flying back from Paris to New York. I think that was it. Maybe it was the other way. And sometimes when I get hit with lyrics, it's like just like a wash. Like I have to stop what I'm doing. And I think it describes, it's a song that describes what happened to me, which was, I'd played all these different roles on the stage and in my personal life, and I just sort of took it for granted that I was a musician and a singer, and I don't want to get emotional, but that I had to just be stripped of everything and realize that all I wanted was music and to appreciate it. So, wow. So I'll sing Angels because they're around. I've been a mother, I've been a maid, and some say the sucker that stayed and stayed. I guess it all helped me to find the key of singing blue. I've been a people pleaser, been a class clown. I've been so low I thought I would drown. I guess it all helped me to find the key of singing blue. Somehow the angels knew after the fall there would be only you. Hey, I love those angels. I've been a wife, I've been a child, and some say a lover who wouldn't stay a while. I guess it all helped me to find the key of singing true. I took roads across the globe, roads too heavy with too many loads. I took roads both hither and yon, roads too dark to carry on, twisted turns fate to bring, come what may. It's never fate, it's the angels. It's never fate, it's the angels. I've been a sinner and I've been a judge, and yes, I've been afraid to admit all I've fudged, but I guess it'll help me to find here in you how insane I had to go so far, tripping round the world with a broken heart to finally find the hidden pearl at home. It's you. Somehow the angels knew after the fall there would be only you. Hey, I love those angels. I've sung for the rich when they felt poor, grateful in my heart that I want nothing more than to feel the sound in the rhythm of hearing you. Don't you know we all play a part in who we are and where thou art? There's only love. You can't take anything with you. Somehow the angels knew after the fall there would be only you. Hey, I love the angels. Oh, I hear those angels calling me. All you gotta do is let those angels sing to you.
What a great session for Studio C today, and with the hometown connection too. And it just goes to show there's so much music to explore and discover and enjoy. One of the true, real pleasures of life. So just fantastic. Thank you very much, Constance, for sharing your stories and being here. Yeah,
Thank you very
very
much.
good. Very good. One more hand, please, in celebration of Constance Hauman.
Thank you.